I am so thrilled because we have Dr. Paula Kluth back with us. And Paula, I've got to figure out what size jacket you would wear because I'm developing this individual jacket for each person who comes on our show on a regular basis like you do. So I don't know. I do have the seamstress name from Saturday Night Live.
I was just
And
going to say, am I Five Timers Club? I might be Five Timers Club.
I think you are. I think you are. So I've got to get on that. Um, welcome to our viewers. Welcome, welcome. If you're watching the replay or live, you are in for a treat because when Paula Kluth is here, there is going to be fun learning. And I love it because Paula has such amazing energy and so many ideas. And she's going to be sharing some of her favorite UDL hacks for the inclusive classroom. And might I say, the more we use UDL, the more inclusive our classrooms are going to be for every learner, right? So, my favorite topic, UDL. I'm going to play a 10-second music interlude. And your job during the interlude is to make sure your friends know that we are live.
I thought it was like a full-on dance party, so I started to hit the dance floor, and then I realized it's only 10 seconds. I better come back. So I did.
I know you are so clever. Okay. Paula and I were doing a little tech work behind the scenes, and we both kind of identified that feeling back in, March, April 2020, when all of a sudden virtual teaching was the thing. And it was like, you're muted. Can you hear me now? I don't know. So we are, like I said, in for a fun a fun hour of learning. And I have an interactive activity that I haven't shared with Paula yet. And so we're going to judge her, what is it called? Not impromptu, but I don't know. When they do things, what is that called?
Like improv.
Improv. Oh, yeah. So this is going to be a little bit of improv. So if you don't know, Paula was a special ed teacher. She was a university professor. She does a lot of teacher education now, and she's a prolific author. So I have pulled a few books that I have in physical copy, not on my Kindle, and I'm going to show Paula a book that she wrote, the cover of the book. And then I'm also going to give her, we have a variety of symbols here. So if I pick laugh, she has to tell me something in her book that made her laugh.
Oh, I love that.
And I want the audience to play along. So you guys that are watching us, let's see. Do we have some live people here? Where are you? So also for you in the audience, then you would say something that made you laugh about the book that I'm showing you. So Kim is here from Iowa. Hey, Kim. Christy is here. We have, so many people. I love it. I love it. And yeah, so yes, Kim is a big fan.
BBU conference.
So I'm so excited. We have people from around the country here with you, Paula. All right. So this is the first book that I'm going to share. And it's also, I don't know if it was Paula's first book or not, but it was probably the first book that kind of introduced me to Paula.
Oh, it is not my first, but it is my first with a huge whale on the cover.
Right. So just give him the whale. So I'm going to pick one of these handy dandy things. And Paula, you have to say something you love about just give him the whale.
Okay, I'm going to cheat and say two quick things. One is I love my co-author, Dr. Patrick Schwartz. And number two, That art was done by a teenage guy at the time, a teenager named Justin Canha. And I said, I want the picture to be of, we always take things away from kids that they love. And I want it to be the opposite. I want the whale to be big and the boy to be small. Oh, makes me, and I started crying when I saw the art because it just, Justin, who's autistic himself, captured it perfectly.
So if you have read Paula's book, Just Give Him the Whale, let us know in the comments what's something you love about this book. Okay, this one isn't actually a book, but it's written by Paula, and I really love it. So what do you call this, like a trifold or?
Like I don't know what they call them, like laminated guides. That's what they call them.
I love these. So this one is teaching students on the autism spectrum in the inclusive classroom.
Okay,
so let me pick a new. Okay, so on fire. So what's something in here that you think is a tip that's just so on fire?
Well, the first thing, of course, is you can spill on it. That's not a tip that's in there, but it's like a good idea. And, you know, in truthfulness, it's been a while since I looked at it, but I bet there is a lot in there about what we're going to talk about today. And that is specifically how to sort of differentiate, individualize, and how those kinds of supports are a catalyst for our creativity for all kids.
Oh, exactly. And I'm going to say one of the things that I love is on the back, it's called Preventing Behavior Struggles. And so many times we hear about what you need to do when a child's having a meltdown or something dysregulated. And instead, we don't think about the preventative part. So these are tips. And do you think, let's see, I bought this at a conference when we were both in Texas at the inclusion conference. So in PR, so I'll put the resource on here if people want to order it,
very nice.
Because it really has a lot of nice things in it. Okay, next book. I love this one too. From tutor scripts to talking sticks. So we got wow. What's something in here that wowed you, Paula?
Well, one of my favorite things, and to be honest, I'm not sure if it's in Talking Sticks or it's like sister book, which is called Text Maps to Memory Caps. But one of the things that we get the most feedback on, like people say, like, I tried this, is something called a stay put support, which is making a little, whatever the teacher's doing at the front of the room, making your own little version of that can go right into a student's lap or at their desktop. And so the one I think that's featured is a little calendar book. So when the teacher's doing the calendar, the student has a little version of the calendar. And when the teacher's doing weather, the child has their own little tiny weather wheel. And when this teacher's doing the hundreds day, they have their own little bundle of sticks. And I'm telling you, of all the things in that book, I get more correspondence about that. And sometimes they're themed on a special interest, but kind of giving kids agency, a little purposeful fidget. So, you know, I'm all about the DIY dollar store stuff. Cheap and easy.
Well, I love it. And this, all of Paula's books are just like packed full of ideas. So if you own tutor scripts to talking sticks, let us know in the comments what was something that wowed you. Now, the next book is a book that I actually used when I was an adjunct instructor at the University of Colorado in Colorado Springs. And so the next book is Joyful Learning.
Okay, love it.
Active and collaborative learning in inclusive classrooms. So, Paula, what is an idea in here that you just want to share?
Let's see, a big idea. Let's see. Well, I love joy, so it's really hard to pick something. But let's say I really love all the communication ideas, and there's a whole host of those. So I won't just say one, but the reason is getting to share those kinds of ideas with folks helps them to see that if a student needs to, first of all, if you have any kind of communication need, you need to communicate a lot. You need to communicate in context of daily instruction. You need to communicate socially. And so I love that we were able to pull forward all these games, exercises, ideas, movement-oriented tasks that would help kids to connect and communicate in the context of these joyful kinds of experiences. So sometimes I'll show a game and folks will say, well, we couldn't play that game because I work with a student that uses augmentative communication. And I'll say, this is the perfect activity for somebody that needs to use augmentative communication, because we want to make sure that kids get lots of practice in classroom energizers, brain breaks, and collaborative structures just like those. So that's been fun to see people get excited about that.
Yeah, and like I said, we use this in the, teacher ed program. And what I love is, each example that she explains in here, then there's also tips on how to maximize engagement and participation. So and then it's, room for you to add other ideas. So as parents, I love, parents to use books like this, and it's like, oh, that's how my kid could do this. And then they can, bring it up and have a conversation with the teacher. So as parents, these books are really important too. Okie dokie, we're almost down. My pile is getting smaller. So this is a book that Paula and Julie Costin wrote together called 30 Days to the Co-Taught Classroom. And so, Paula, I'm sure when you were working with Julie, there were probably a few laughs.
Well, I think the pictures themselves are very funny. They look fabulous. But my favorite part probably of the whole book that makes me laugh every time I look at it is we have a list of things not to do in meetings. And, and it's kind of things like, don't fall asleep and, make too much noise, and don't just doodle pictures of stick figures and draw hats on them. It's a whole litany of things not to do that we've probably all done. And I still remember making that list and laughing so hard that we looked like that emoji.
Wow. And so the book that we're actually going to be talking about today, this is her first edition of it. My second edition is on my Kindle. You got the second edition. Look at you.
Sticky.
Daily. So we are ready to get into hacks. So I love that. So you can tell a flavor of all the things that you can learn from Paula. So not only through her books, but when she's doing live shows like this with us. So I'm happy that you're here. Shall we get started?
I would love to. I'm excited. So am I doing that now? Now, you're coaching me through this. So I have to put the notes up. Present, right? Oh, there we go. Or did you do it?
Yeah, I got it. So yeah, so now you can go through.
Okay, fantastic. So what we want to do is, Charmaine, you're such an early adopter of UDL too. So please feel free to chime in, anything that I'm saying. And we just wanted to spend some time doing something kind of quick and easy, because the UDL framework can be very overwhelming. There's a lot to learn. And so I think I speak for both of us when we say we really like to sort of learn and share some of those things that can be entry point, just help our mindset shift a little bit. So we want to do that with that in this session today. Just a quick reminder that if there's things that you don't get to today, I don't get to today, or there's a resource that Charmaine mentions that's related to my work, everything, the one-stop shop is the website. So that's inclusionrules.com. So anything that we kind of smooth over, too quickly or something, that's where you can find me. If you're trying to avoid me, that's a good place to avoid as well. But that's there. So in the name of UDL, we just want to encourage you to experience this in any way that feels good to you. That's why we love virtual. So start by taking a nice drink of water. I mean, if you have coffee, that's understandable too. Hydrate yourself. Also a part of UDL, are you ready to learn, right? Get a little shoulder shrug going on here. This is kind of, the kind of stuff with UDL we don't think about so much. Just a few arm circles, at least for me. I've been sitting a lot today. Okay. Is just part of that engagement principle is, are you even ready to take this in? So just as a way of modeling that, we'll also remind you, take notes in any way that works for you. Maybe you want to put a few sticky notes in front of you. Maybe you want to just take some traditional notes in your notebook, or maybe you're taking notes on your machine or whatever it may be, or you're doodling all over the place. And all of those things work great for us if they work great for you. So just as a way of kind of trying to practice what we preach, right? What can this look like? All right. So you're going to be getting some resources through this. I guess they're going to be in our handouts. They're going to be in the comments, I guess. Charmaine, should I say that? But there's links to 5 pages from the book. And so I just want to say before we get started what you're seeing. You are going to see the first edition of the book doesn't have this, but if you have the second edition of the book, you should have all the checkpoints and the guidelines in the principles. So when you see that gray tab in the right corner of any of those pages, that's the UDL principle. So in this case, action and expression. In the far left-hand corner of every page is which guideline is being represented. And then underneath that is which checkpoint is being represented. So if you are somebody who's teaching this, sharing it with somebody else, it's explained in the beginning of the book, but it's helpful to kind of know that as you look at those resources. Okay. All right. We're going to start with just a very quick look at, what is UDL for anybody that's a beginner. And then we're going to talk about why UDL? Why should we care about this? So this is one of the definitions that's kind of a summary definition. I like it. It's from the Higher Ed Opportunity Act, folks. And what they're talking about is just paraphrasing what the folks at CAST have been not only developing, but popularizing for the last few decades, a framework, a way of thinking about work in the classroom and beyond. So these folks have created this framework around 3 principles: that we're going to be flexible and dynamic in the ways that we're presenting information. So a really sort of a cheap way to think about that is kind of what the teacher's doing. Am I wearing a costume? Am I showing a graphic organizer? Is there an anchor chart that I'm creating? Are there materials in front of me, manipulatives? Is there a model of the human heart, that I'm handing out, passing around? So that's what we're talking about there. The ways that students respond, well, we're going to mix those up, shake those up as well. So are students going to be raising their hands to answer this? Are they going to give me a thumbs up? Are they going to rate themselves on a scale? Are they going to create a project to be assessed, or am I just going to interview them? And even in other sort of ways of thinking about this are just access itself. Will the student be able to enter this activity if we don't have assistive technology, for example, or augmentative communication? And then finally, we're going to change up the ways that students are engaged. So this goes from everything to choice making, to are you comfortable, to is this properly challenging? Is this appropriately challenging for you? And this UDL, which is kind of, we're going to talk about in a second, but the idea that I think really attracted me, and again, Charmaine, I hate to keep speaking for you, but I think for both of us, was this barrier reduction idea, because it was the first time that we saw this as a real highlight. Instead of looking at what we have to do for kids, because the kids are in need, right? That was the old way of thinking. Now we could actually look at environment, materials, our own practice. Let's actually look at how to reduce barriers in general. How do we provide supports for all kids? And how do we, again, think about appropriately challenging? That means we want to reduce barriers for kids that want to sort of take, their interests in a certain direction, kids that need enrichment or challenge, and that's all kids at some point. But this idea of barrier reduction is a big deal. And that's why I wanted to talk about something that Charmaine and I have actually talked about before. And you can just put a yes in the chat if you've ever felt this way. But Charmaine, have you ever had somebody to say to you, UDL sounds great, but I'm fine over here just learning about differentiated instruction, and I don't know why I need something new?
Oh, exactly. And, for people that don't know, I was a teacher for 30 years, and I would, talk to other teachers about inclusion or co-teaching or UDL, and you can tell some people just kind of shut down. It's like Charmaine's trying to talk about another new thing to me. And this kind of also goes with the question a parent had asked me recently about, like, how do we change those mindsets when people are like, what I've been doing the past 20 years is working. I really don't need to change. So, yeah, I would love for people to write some comments in the chat. Have you experienced that? And Paula, I would guess with all the teacher education that you do, that mindset is something you also deal with.
Well, and I experienced it. When I first learned about UDL, I mean, in all honesty, I was like, I have to learn something new. I've written all these books about differentiated instruction, and I think it's kind of the same, And actually, it's not the same. Differentiated instruction is really helpful, and it is part of a model of universal design for learning. But it is different, and these are not three ideas that you're going to see anywhere. They're just sort of the world according to Paula. This is my own personal why. But why I found this, the more I researched, the more I wrote, I thought, well, if I'm going to be in classrooms and teaching and working with teachers, like I have to know about this, the more attracted I became to this framework. And these were my three again. And I'd love to know in the chat, as I talk about these three, which of these three, if any, and I ask teachers this all the time, is most interesting to you. So my first one was, my why was that UDL to me was a little bit different in that I had never seen in other models where students as expert learners, learning to learn was a centerpiece. So when we talk about people that are saying, oh, something new, something different, this isn't really the same as other models. It's not just around disability, it's really a model for all, so that we can become flexible, we can customize for kids and so on. But that this idea is so central that kids learn to learn and they learn to know about themselves. And the first thing I thought about when I was reading this was self-determination. Kids with disabilities from very early ages on, middle school for sure, on what would you like to do when you grow up? What are some of your goals? And these kids are seventh grade. They're like, I don't know. Imagine if everybody from early ages on, they were learning to be reflective. They were being sort of asked about their own learning. What are your preferences? Why do you think you like that? Who do you think you work best with? So this idea is not around disability. It's just this idea of self-determination. Well, let me say it backwards. I think UDL is breathing new life into self-determination as a concept. And I'll give one piece of evidence on that. Our colleague, Mike Waymeyer from Kansas, who's done his life's work on self-determination, he's written all these books, and I would say mostly the audience has been people like me and you, disability. They just published a new book with ASCD, which is a general education publisher. And we are seeing having kids doing goal setting and reflecting on their own, who they are, and helping kids understand creating maps and plans. That's becoming like ubiquitous in schools. That might be a little strong, but I think that that's an exciting part, a gift of UDL.
Oh, exactly.
I mean, don't you think so? Like that is like ripped straight from our core belief systems.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And I mean, just that, I always had, since age 3, my son Dylan attended his IEP meetings, and it might be like 3. Well, because we had it at our house. We had the IEP meeting at our house, so Dylan could play with the dogs and play with the toys, and people could see him. And this is a person we're talking about. So even having your child present and for part of IEP meetings, if you don't want them there for the whole meeting, it does huge things for their self-confidence that, they're the head of the table, and their voice needs to be heard too.
100%. And now we can take those beliefs, that we've had, and what does that mean in other contexts? It's whether it's my own assessments, going to my parent teacher conferences, which are family conferences, which that's a thing now. I mean, we see that more and more, but checking in with kids in new ways and always kind of reinforcing with them that, in this classroom, we are just concerned with you becoming ever more savvy around your own learning. And that's huge, I think. So that was really attractive to me. The second was the barrier breaking, which we've already talked about, that it sort of flipped the equation from the kids to our own practice in a sense and our own spaces. And then finally, and I feel like this, everyone's going to list number 3 as their most interesting or cherished, is what you said, Charmaine, inclusion. In the word universal, universal, I mean, the U in Universal Design Daily, in UDL rather, that's everybody. I mean, right? That's the universe. So that's inclusion. I mean, to me, this is really exciting. And so that we are basically saying in this framework that we want to be inclusive of all. So that was really attractive. So if you have a free hand and you want to throw something in the chat, which of those 3, and again, this is not sort of, sculpted. This is not, set in stone anywhere. This is just, these were my 3.
Yes. So Lisa's here with us. Paula and Lisa are good friends. Yeah. And she says it's a brilliant path for students to help hone interests and find future career interests. There's more student buy-in when they have choice and voice. Exactly. Yeah. Kim from Iowa says open doors.
I knew that, Kimberly. I knew that.
Yes, I know. To me, I say a lot of times, maybe instead of being so focused on advocating for inclusive education, if we were strong advocates for UDL, I mean, that's where inclusion lives and thrives, right? So yeah, if we could approach it that way and get teachers interested, because sometimes when you say that I word, it really turns people off. So maybe UDL could be a backdoor to inclusion.
I mean, I think it's definitely serves us well at the very least to be talking about them in concert.
Right.
Super smart. So I am going to I know it's, I'm sort of talk really quickly and everything, but I am going to sort of throw these 5 ideas at you. So just buckle your seatbelts. I don't even have props today, but I did look at these earrings. I do have pencil earrings that one of my dearest besties ever, Julie, gave me. And they're very teachery and fun. Yes, let's get the close-up on the earrings. So I won't be literally throwing objects like I sometimes do on this program, but we will be going kind of quickly through these so that we have some time to process. And so before I do that, I just wanted to model one other aspect of UDL, which is handing things over to our students, right? So again, in that sort of way of having kids understand their own learning, I just want you to think about what is your goal for this. My goal for you is to get 1 hack. You might not take all 5. If you do, yay, that would be wonderful. But 1 is great. And then I also want to take the sort of the negative language off of the idea of a hack, as if it's sort of cheap or something. I think it can be a really nice, how do I say this? It can be a easy way into understanding this framework a little bit better. And there's an awful lot of these things that not everything can be a hack. But I think, as Charmaine said, when you're trying to get somebody else to understand your way of thinking, having shortcuts is a nice way to do it. Hey, just think about it this way or try it this way. So those are my goals for us. And maybe you have a goal for yourself. And maybe you're thinking, maybe I'm going to use one of these hacks today. Or maybe your goal is I'm going to present this to my colleagues this week or something like that. Or maybe you're going to get these earrings. I think she got them on Amazon. I don't know. I really like them. It's so cute. Okay. So let's start with what is a hack. Now, please feel free to put your hacks in. We all want hacks. So if you have a hack, please let us know. Now, it is a trick, a shortcut, something novel. Listen, I was reading a woman's magazine once, and it said that there was a hack for jam. And it was like, here's your jam making hack. You could take any berries that you have, and you could mix this with something else, and then you would have your own jam. And I just remember thinking, that is the opposite of a hack. Like a hack is, I will buy a jam. I'm not making any jam at all. So I hope that when you look at these, you will think that's a real hack. Okay, so I'm going to show you some, and maybe you can put some in the chat. you can't, some of you may know this, you can light a candle with a piece of spaghetti. You know that one?
I do. I forgot about it though.
You can, so if you don't, especially to get right into the candle, you just light it and then you can come over. And if you don't have one of those little clicky things, that's a hack. That's real. That's a real hack. Here's one, you'll like this. This is my husband. If your husband tries to take a book from you that's yours and they want to borrow it, you just take a picture of them. And now I'm thinking, where is my copy of You're Gonna Love This Kid? And I know it's my husband. My husband has stolen my copy. So someone tries to borrow things, you take a little picture of them, and that's who has my hedge clippers.
I love it.
This is one people may not have, and I'm telling you, I swear by this. This is not made up. I keep my passport in my freezer.
Huh.
Because I lose things. And so I read this somewhere 20 years ago. My family does not do this. So like they're on their own, but everyone thinks I'm ridiculous. But I lose things all the time. So every day I see my passport every single day. I touch it almost every single day. When I'm in there getting my little ice cream, whatever. So I always know where it is, and it's an important document. So I hope nobody will steal it from me now they know where it is. If you lose things, this is a tip. And maybe that's the one thing you're going to get from this workshop. That would be good. So if anybody else have hacks that they swear by, because this is a good one, right, Charmaine? That's a good one.
I love it. Yeah, so let's see what Lisa says here. I got to get my glasses.
Oh, she Lisa, says, that's good.
Take a picture of where you park. Well, not even just theme park. I need that for the grocery store.
Well, airport for sure, right? Lisa was my co-teacher on one of my episodes that I was on here on Art of Advocacy. Hi, Lisa.
Yes. Yeah, Lisa is like an incredible person with ideas too. Or she was saying her at the hospital. Oh yeah, that's a great hack.
Or like you said, Charmaine, just tomorrow going down to getting my hair done, and I just will not remember where it was, and it's like not much there. Anyway, you could keep those coming. I'm just moving on just because I want to make sure we get through them. But please, if you have a good hack, put them in the chat because we all need them. And now I feel the freezer one was really good. So I just want to make sure I get something back. But now Lisa's got a good one for me. Okay. So one thing that I think is helpful, and this is kind of before we even get into the hacks, this is an a few years old Bloomberg article, how tech for the disabled is going mainstream. And I just put this up because I think one of the best sort of like say overarching hack before I tell you my 5 is this idea that I've always said, and I've written a lot about, kids with disabilities are this incredible catalyst for creativity in an inclusive classroom. So the first place that we can look for a hack or an idea is what supports do kids with disabilities require bring into the classroom? What technologies do they bring? And can that serve as some kind of an inspiration around this? And so as I go through the 5, you might see remnants of that idea being pulled through. So flexible seating, I think, is a great example of this. 20 years ago, if you saw flexible seating in a classroom, I walked by and I'd say, oh, they must have a child with a disability in that classroom. Now, you would be hard pressed to go to an elementary school and not find some flexible seating in almost every classroom. That's an example. So what we owe an incredible debt to folks with disabilities who have inspired us to think differently about support widely, and everything from, on our phones, the text the predictive text, that when we text that, we get that spelling support, so much that we are using is designed for folks with disabilities initially. And then we said, wow, that's a great idea. I would like to have that. Sliding doors at the grocery store. How would we live without them post-pandemic, right? Or during the pandemic? So I think that's just a good overarching idea. And again, a lot of these things I'm going to share have been inspired by, the lens of a special education teacher for sure. All right. So again, fasten seatbelts again. Now the shoulder, make sure your shoulder and lap is okay. Very good. And let's start getting these shortcuts. I said there'd be no props, but I can't help myself. All right. Shortcuts, hacks. Okay. Number 1 is captions. They are ubiquitous. I mean, I bet when this gets posted, like my videos that get posted, the captions, you can enable captions if you need to, if you'd like to do so. Kids, the research that's really, really interesting that's coming out is that teenagers and kids prefer captions because they're seeing them on TikTok, they're seeing them on their social media, they're seeing them on YouTube. A lot of us just put a yes in the chat if you watch TV with captions. I'm going to say, at least half of us do, right? It is super common now for people to use that support and say that they prefer it. I certainly do not watch television without captions anymore. So so there's all those kinds of examples that we can keep in mind. But they started again as a support for a certain population of individuals, right? Kids who are deaf and hard of hearing, emerging readers, kids who are multilingual, kids who we don't yet know are readers, kids that maybe are non-speaking. And so it's just great scaffolds to have in place. Tell this hack to your building administrator. You should never have a staff meeting without your captions being enabled on any presentation, software that's being used. You should never be presenting to parents at family literacy night without your captions and so on. So you can use media, like we talked about, videos and things like that, but you can also use live captions on Google Slides or on PowerPoint. So we're going to do a little demonstration because it was hard to do with this, this format. So we actually created a little video for you. So let's see. Okay, Charmaine, I'm going to
crossing our fingers.
Yes. Okay.
This is where we go back to 2020 and learning technology.
Right now. Okay. Da da da. Da da da.
It's building up that excitement,
I know. Okay. No, of course now I can't find it. Okay. Wait, here it is. Okay. Can you see it?
Yeah, I see the.
So here's a quick demonstration of how to enable your captions in PowerPoint. You're going to go to the options here at the top of your screen. You're going to pick slideshow. And when you do so, if you have one of the more recent versions of PowerPoint, at the very, very far right side, you will see in a little box here that you can tick that says always use subtitles. So you're going to tick that box. And once that box has a little check mark inside of it, you can now start your presentation, and your subtitles should be enabled. So at the very bottom, you can see mine says starting subtitles. If your microphone's working, if everything's, if you're connected to the internet, you should start to see those captions appearing. So I have this is a free option, and you can see it's, pretty accurate. You can make some choices. I'm not going to model it here, but you can make some choices here as well. If you want this text to be at the top of the screen, the bottom of the screen, over the slides, etc.
Okay, I'm coming out. I'm coming back to you, I hope. Did we do it?
We did it.
All right. And shockingly, now I couldn't see the comments before, but now I can see them. So that's really cool too. So I love this. Yeah. And Kim's saying it bugs me when they're off. It bugs me too. And any context that I'm in where there aren't captions, it's really irritating.
Yeah. And Allison, she has been doing a lot of work with CAST and presenting things in California. And so she was talking about the universal design things like in our bathrooms, right? And after having 2 knee replacements, I have added accommodations for myself. So yeah, you look at things that maybe, like Paula said, were first invented for people with disabilities. But now, I mean, everyone benefits from using those. So that's so funny.
I was just at the baseball game, go Brewers. And I was at the baseball game the other day, and they finally started putting captioning on the big screen versus having to look, away from the image. And I went right to the customer, support centers like, thank you so much. You need to add more because like, Christy's saying helpful if you're sitting next to the air conditioner or whatever, so many contexts. So I will just very quickly say, you can, do a little research yourself. We won't go too far down this rabbit hole, but you can do the same thing in Google Slides. You can do this in so many apps, Flipgrid, all those kinds of things that kids use. And also in PowerPoint, you can also translate. So as the teacher, I can speak in English and I can be captioning in Spanish, or vice versa. I can speak in Spanish. So I was in a Chicago public school recently, and there's a lot of kids coming from Venezuela right now. And there was a little kid doing a presentation in Spanish, and the translation function was on in English. So the kids could all see how bright and capable this, their peer was, this newcomer to the classroom, because they were able to understand his presentation, which was pretty cool. So anyway, so those are some things to explore, and different people I know have different access to different things, but do some checks with your teams and see what they have access to and share the good news.
And so I need to contact StreamYard, the platform I'm using, and say, how come we don't have captions? So that's my job for today.
I love that. We are seeing it more, even places that didn't have it 6 months ago. So it's coming slowly but surely, for sure. So you are going to get a page from the book, and it looks like this, page 290. And you can, it's just a little bit about, I don't know if it cites some of the research, but some of the exciting things coming up, but some different uses for captions. So that's the page that you will have in the link. It's day 290 from the book. All right. The second one is share the slant board. So this is kind of a drafting off of what I said in my kickoff, if you will, which is using the tools that kids with disabilities specifically bring into your classroom as your inspo. So here's 3 examples. Even something like a typical slant board, like some students might say, I'm interested in that. What is that used for? And letting students try out some of those tools that come in. You may find that even though the student may not need it for low vision or something, they may find the novelty of it engaging in some way. So I have an adapted keyboard there, and I'll tell you a quick story about a student named Courtney, who I met in a Chicago public school not long ago. And Courtney was saying, he has a couple of classmates who have disabilities. And so he said, I want that colorful, cool looking keyboard. And he said, I need that. And I said, well, Courtney, you don't need it necessarily, right? But I was interested in what he was saying. And he goes, I want that. And so I was like, well, Andrew's not here, so you could use it till Andrew comes, And then Andrew didn't come. And so Courtney sat down with that keyboard, and he did not look up, and he blogged for 20 minutes or whatever it was. And I just remember saying to my colleague, that's remarkable. I've never seen him work like that. And we're like, let's order a few more adapted keyboards. So to me, that's a great example of, you don't always need certain things. That's an invisible barrier. So when you get, I'll give a teacher example, and also for some of us, just people that like doing this kind of stuff. And a lot of times that's those of you that are tuning in here, you get your colorful markers and you work on your calendar, your schedule, you're doing adaptations with your kid. And it's like, do you need all the fun little supplies? Well, maybe not. But for some of us, when we have to sit down and do a big family planning calendar or something like that, it just kind of gives us that fluency that we need, that kick. So I give that as an example of sometimes these elements of novelty or interest, they can break down a barrier we didn't even know existed. And now Courtney's like, I'd rather have that tool, or let me try that thing, or I've never used virtual manipulatives. I don't technically need them, but that might be a cool skill for a kid to learn, because now they're learning how to learn. They're learning new apps, they're learning new tools, and they're able to say, this I think would be better with physical manipulatives, but this I think would be better to learn with the virtual. And they're starting to think, sort of in that way. And then I'll tell you one more that's on this page, something like an Amazon, I don't want to say it too loud. But here somebody brings this in, and maybe a child with a disability needs it as an access point, right? They need it as a calculator. So their calculator is a personal assistant, right? And so kids see them using that. And then the teacher goes, if UDL is a lot about teaching kids to be teachers of themselves and learning how to learn, what other things through the course of this year could we learn with our echo. So when we're not using it as a calculator, could we ask that student, hey, can we have an animal fact of the day? Could we play a game with it? Could we learn how to, manipulate this environment in some way? Can we cook with, so can we make a list for our classroom party? And now again, we're to an area of UDL that has nothing to do specifically around disability. It's just around creating this richer experience and teaching us about how to become expert learners. So I know I'm reading some of these are so great. So you're going to get a page here. I think the page I gave you was a different one. I think I gave a different one. The day 201 is augmentative communication for all, but which is in the spirit of this. But I think I ended up substituting the actual day, which is share the slant board, and is about sort of this kind of the central idea here. So you're getting one of those two pages. I'm not sure which one, but both around that same idea. And the same with augmentative communication, right? If one student is signing, what are all the ways that we can teach vocabulary to kids throughout the year? That's a literacy skill, and teaching symbol systems is a really smart way to enhance learning, for any kid. Yeah, I like that. Lisa says bringing the echo can help build community. I love that too. It's just kind of a fun way to, it's a collaborative, it's a technology that we can learn collaboratively for sure. Yeah. I like Allison's comment here too, Charmaine. Go ahead. Yeah, read it.
Oh, yeah. So thanks, Allison. She said, guys, whenever we advocate for an accommodation for our own child, let's cast our minds to how might his classmates take this and find it useful, and advocate for weaving it in as a universal support. It also reduces stigma of difference and makes all students realize they should and can look for things to help themselves. Yeah, for sure.
And again, we've always kind of, I think, Charmaine, we've talked about this a lot before we knew about UDL, is saying, look at these technologies. I wrote an article probably 20 years ago about how students on the spectrum, how they bring these, how their mere presence in a literacy classroom provides these opportunities, whether it's through technology or viewpoints or even just very simply about my own experience is different than your experience in comprehension and all those kinds of things. So I think UDL kind of embracing that is great. So, again, it just feels like it's just something just custom made for us, even though it's not. It's really developed for all. So this is an easy one, and this is more of a mindset. And I think parents, family members in general will find this one kind of just an easy mindset embrace, which is try this and that. That's what I call it in the book. Try this and that, meaning that, helping, as a teacher, I can't do everything in terms of representation, but I can always think, if you're not getting it this way, what else can I try? So we're, maybe there's a PowerPoint presentation or maybe a passage in the textbook about Romeo and Juliet, and we're trying to learn the scenes or the acts of the play, or we're maybe even doing a deep dive on vocab. And, maybe I developed a little Romeo and Juliet puppet show in one classroom, because kids could either do a little focus group with a teacher, or they could do a little puppet show to kind of act out a scene or do a retelling. And we found that kids who had no problems, maybe doing that focus group or that interview, picked the puppet show. It was like there was a whimsical element to it. Again, that novelty is embedded. If you're a more dramatic sort, there's a little bit of humor there. And so is there another way to show this? So if I'm the teacher and I'm teaching something, is there one other way to show this? So maybe as you're talking about a scene, having that moment of like that little humorous interlude with acting that scene out with a visual could be your this and that. How about something like vocabulary? So we're learning about the vocabulary, we're showing an image of trudge, or maybe we're even standing up and we're going to trudge. These are things that teachers do all the time, but this is a way to sort of demystify this notion of representation. Even if it's just our mindset, like maybe most are getting it with this, but could I just add one more? Could I color code it? Should I chunk it down? Should we act it out? This and that can be just a nice mindset. we got a great visual here about our food web or chain. But I could also show them what this looks like more physically with my little stackables. I think this is from text maps. Speaking of text maps, memory caps. But the krill's eating the algae and the glass minnow's eating the krill. And so that's like this other demonstration, bringing the kids up and we're actually showing it. So it's teachers already do this, but I think I'll sometimes use this as a way to say, don't be overwhelmed. You already do this. And it can be as simple as just embracing this idea of this and that. Right. So is there another way? And sometimes it's that and that, in some instances, but that's the spirit. I think that can be really helpful as well. I would be remiss if I didn't say a word about choices, because that's such a big idea in working with a lot of the kids that we know, is making choices, not just something that we're doing around behavior or something like that, but that's central to the work in the classroom. And this can be about the level of challenge. It can be about the tools that we're using. Do you want to use this or this? What kind of sequence do you want to do this in? What would you like to do first? Maybe you're using Genius Hour or free time, or you're doing a soft start, partners or groupings. Who do you think you work well with? I think choices are a great opportunity to learn about kids and to help with that goal of expert learning. So you chose to work with Charmaine today. How did that go? Would you have chosen maybe to work with a partner next time or on your own? So helping kids to say that these are dynamic choices and that they can hone them and learn more about themselves as they create those choices. You created a website for this last unit. Do you think that was a good way to demonstrate what you know? Would you have chosen to do the skit next time? And just having kids think about that. Choices also offer us a chance to integrate some of those new ideas. So if we are trying to teach kids new tools and methods and ways of being over the course of a semester or a year, choices allow us to do this. You can do what you've been doing before, but if you'd like to learn a new vocabulary app, that's an option for you. And some kids won't want to do that and some kids might. So choice boards are one way that teachers sort of formalize that with the curriculum. This is one I did recently for a forensics class. I planned for much in my life, but folks do that again with things like the Genius Hour I mentioned, where kids get to make a choice of what they'd like to design or what they'd like to learn, maybe through an hour or a day. Innovation Day, sometimes folks call it that. It could just be something very simple just in book club. Do you want to read this or this? The caveat for choices that I'll say is we don't want to overwhelm kids for sure. So some young children, I think a lot of times 2 is fine. If a choice is required, it might be too overwhelming to go further than that. And for older kids, even, sometimes 3 is just enough. And you'll know some kids having 6 choices is way too much. So being also mindful of, keeping the choices fairly simple, not making everything limitless, and then knowing your audience as well, I think is really important. Thank you, Barb. I see that. Thank you for that. So you'll get day 57. You will get choose choices as part of your little handouts there. Okay, and the last one, we're going to make it, Charmaine, even though I talked.
You're fine. No, you're fine. We love it.
Okay. And then ask them. And I think this is a hack. Remember, I wanted these to be real hacks. Like I wanted these to be really easy. Just here's a mindset shift. Here's something you can just flip on. This to me is like chef's kiss easy, because it's saying the resource is right there. Just go for it. Ask them. So some different ways you can ask them or go to your consumer is just asking. I work with a co-teaching team right now, and they did a co-teaching survey at the end of the year, and they said to the kids, what really worked, and what were your favorite lessons, and what supports do you like, and what's the most fun brain break that we do? And they said, well, we wish we would have done it earlier, because we would have been able to use the feedback with that very group and those individuals. So some folks do a report card for the teacher. They'll just ask kids, pull individual kids like, hey, what's been your favorite thing that we've done in science? So that's a very easy way to kind of get to that customization or individualization or support, is just thinking about, are there ways to just kind of check in and see what kids think? Another one is do I need to do this is an easy way to ask them or turn things over to kids, is when something's happening, like somebody, I don't know, comes for a tour of the classroom for whatever reason. It's like, well, can a kid just do it? Do I have to do this? A kid needs help. It's like, can another kid do that? You know, teachers do this quite naturally. But I think that is such a smart way to get yourself out of it and let kids take over the classroom in whatever ways make sense. If you're having a tech problem, before you call tech, can a kid help you? Like, they're becoming more expert and they're honing those skills. And it's a really easy hack to say, do I work on building that, flexing that muscle all year long? Yes, because I often ask myself, could a kid be doing this? And then finally, support strategies. So, you might, the page that you're going to get is a story about, from Just Give 'Em the Whale, is about a teacher who is, this kid loves John Deere, and he talks a lot during class. And so the teacher preemptively took him to had lunch with him and asked him all about John Deere, and kind of preemptively talked about, in my class, we're going to talk about social studies, but I am interested in John Deere. And, how do you think we can work this out? Because he had such a reputation of kind of chattering so much. And they worked out that he would have a notebook and he would write about John Deere in a John Deere notebook. And then the teacher would read it at intervals so that he didn't have to sort of talk about it as much during lessons and things like that. And then they would have this correspondence, and it just worked really beautifully. And so he went to the student, in a sense, for guidance. And if our students don't have a lot of ways to communicate effectively with us, that's where parents, Patrick Schwartz says, parents are the gold standard. That is such an UDL hack, is ask your families. Not every family can do that, but the families that can do that and want to do that are waiting to be asked, right?
Yes, yes, yes. Yes, they are.
I mean, isn't that just it? It's like, ask, we know. So and we want to have a few moments just to look at the comments. So I'll just say this. I also attached for you something that I have given to a lot of teachers this summer. It's this trying something new handout. And when folks leave the workshop and they're like, oh my gosh, my head's exploding, you said too many things, like today maybe. But I said, okay, let's just start somewhere. And so I give them this sheet. I say, let's start here, and then let's use this as a springboard. So this is something that we can share around and say, let's get started with some area here that will be powerful, and then we can add on from there. So you'll have access to that as well. I think that's everything. That's it, my friend.
Wow, my goodness. I'm just sitting here just like when I listen to you, Paula, I want to go back to the classroom and be a teacher, because it's like, look at all the possibilities that we have. And it's an exciting time, because we are starting to understand that we can use natural peer supports, that sometimes a student could be a co-teacher with the classroom teacher, right? The choices that we're giving kids, the ability to learn those self-determination skills. And the other thing I think is, when I was teaching, this made teaching fun for me,
Right.
and it's like this whole level of excitement. It's not like, okay, open your workbooks, open your phonics workbook. It's like we have a variety of ways to tap in. And I mean, some kids would be like, I want the workbook, give,
Right.
take this other stuff away. So it's not like we're going to dump everything. So I don't know. I'm just so thrilled. And Paula, you are, I mean, it's like every segment in this video could be a separate clip with all the wonderful examples that you've given us. So I'm going to use a little bit of AI. I have this tool that I use, and I am going to put this video, the whole video, into this tool. And it is going to give me all kinds of video clips. It's going to give me ideas of how we could write this as a social media post. It's going to give me audio clips. And I want to repurpose the heck out of this, Paula, because you were just blowing my mind. And I think about using AI, and it's like, yeah, but we can go to low tech. I mean, we have this is more than ChatGPT is going to be able to tell you, believe me.
I don't know about that.
Well, ChatGPT is amazing. However, I don't know. There's still something about opening a book and going, I love that idea. So anyway,
Yeah,
because
love our paper sometimes. That's true.
Yes, I still believe in books, and we're going to give away a book, Paula's new edition. So, my scientific way, I have to put on my scientific glasses.
Wait, Charmaine, before you do that, can I ask one thing?
Yes.
While you're getting that set up, I always like to end, because we had that goal, everybody would pick maybe one favorite thing.
Yes.
While Charmaine's doing that, would you put up, if you have one, what would be of those 5, which one of those would you be most likely to try or pass to somebody today? Which one of those 5? Maybe just put that in the chat. We'd love to know while Charmaine's giving our book away. Sorry, my friend.
No, you're fine. So do you want to name the 5 in case some people like come in later?
Well, now you're putting me
or
on.
Do you have is there a slide that has them?
I don't have them in a row, but we have captions. We have, I called it Share the Slant Board, which is be inspired by the tech in the classroom. We have Try This and That. We have Choices. And we have finally was Just Ask Them, right? Go to the kids.
What a concept, right? Yes. So which one? Oh, so Lisa says, choices. Heidi, hey Heidi, she says the caption idea, and Marie likes choices. So does Lisa. Yes, and Kim says,
Kim would pick 2. I love you, Kim, for that.
Captions and just ask them. It's like, come on, people, it can't be that hard.
Yes, Natalie, it's perfect. Try this and that. So that's perfect. Yours is better than mine. Something like that. Yeah, great. Slant board. We that's our first slant board too. That's good.
Cool.
I love it, Allison. Thank you.
Well, and you just increase your chances of winning the book, because I run through and I go through all the comments. And so I'll take off my glasses so I'm not cheating. And I'm going to scroll through here, and then I'm going to, let's see, keep scrolling. And then I'm going to stop on somebody, and you will get the new edition of Paula's UDL.
I'm crossing fingers for everybody.
Kim, look at you. You are lucky. All right. So, Kim, I even know your address because Kim is a lucky winner. So this is the first edition. I will be sending you the second edition. And I would just love to say thank you all for being here. The replay will be up as soon as we end the show. So ask colleagues, ask your kids' teachers, come back and watch this video. I mean, they will learn. This is like a whole professional development unit for staff and for parents. So I have to use at least one prop today. So thank you so much, Paula.
I hate to cut away from this, but it is time to go.
Yes. Okay. Well, thank you all for being here. And the other thing is, I'm going to put the links to those pages that Paula showed. And also, if you get my newsletter, I'll put it in there, iep.today/weekly ad tips. And then I have another promotion, sorry, is October 5th. I'm going to be doing a Zoom, so you have to register for it, about using AI in your advocacy. So that's the link where you can go and sign up for the Zoom. So I don't know. I don't want to say goodbye, and I wish Chicago.
We'll just say farewell to the next time I wear the jacket.
I know. So you got to give me your measurements, and I'll send it to Saturday Night Live, and they'll design a new one for the Art of Advocacy. So
I love it. I love it. Thanks for joining us, everybody.
yes, we'll see you
Happy
again.
hacking.
Bye-bye.